This meeting is being recorded for playback on WRPS. You can find it on WRPS.com, and I believe it's also being live streamed as well. We have a pretty full agenda today, where we'll be talking to the highway department, the fire department, as well as going over the committee for the current year. So, do we have a motion to open the meeting?
I motion to open the meeting.
Okay.
I'll motion to second.
Atta girl.
All right. So let's approve some prior meeting minutes. What do we got there, Jeff?
See if I can share my screen here.
I'll unshare so that you can share.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So March 4th. Can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So I'll start with the March 4th minutes. Members in attendance: Rich, Joe, Jeff, Chris, Doug. Members absent: Lauren. Guests: Jane Hackett and Derek Ewell. Do you want me to read this all the way through, or do you guys just want to read it on the screen?
I think we can read it on the screen if you want to just summarize the fact that it was basically meeting with the school committee and the community preservation.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we started by reviewing the minutes from the February 18th and February 25th meetings. Committee voted unanimously to approve both of those minutes. Jane presented the school department changes to the capital budget. The committee voted unanimously to accept those changes. Derek Ewell presented a change to the capital preservation committee capital plan. The committee voted unanimously to approve that. Let's see, at that point, we went back and scored the projects for the year. Rich made a motion to approve the final capital plan. The committee unanimously approved, and we made a motion to adjourn at 8:05 p.m.
Can I get a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
Second. All those in favor? Lauren wasn't here, so Jeff?
Was I there? Yeah.
Yep.
You were there, Joe.
I say okay.
Jeff?
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Chris?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
And I agree as well. Okay, so those
Yeah,
were
I'm going to
approved.
abstain, obviously.
Yep. 'cause
Yeah.
you weren't there.
You might have,
Vote present.
sometimes you got to hit control and then click on the link.
Who made that motion?
I
Doug did.
believe
I did.
Chris made Doug made the motion, and Chris seconded.
Okay. Sorry, just trying to write these down as I go through the old ones.
I believe
All
Chris
right.
is actually Kaylee today.
These are the minutes to the March 18th meeting. All present except for Lauren. Guest in attendance: Joe Lapointe and
Yes.
Elizabeth Zaleski. Meeting called to order at 7.
02, no,
And
079, 024.
From the water department.
079, I did the same
Emergency
mistake for the
article
name.
for 2
079.
filtering vessels for the Haines Street water
079,
facility.
024.
Joe, you're on mute.
6 digits.
Can everybody hear me? All right.
No.
Rich requested a motion to accept the changes. The committee approved unanimously. We added the emergency article to the capital plan and scored it. Rich made a motion to approve the amended capital plan. The committee unanimously approved. No additional business to be discussed. And Rich made a motion to adjourn at 7:22 PM.
Okay, can I have a motion
After you put in
to
the
accept
code,
these
you gotta type
minutes?
in accept video and then accept
Motion made.
audio, right?
Okay. Somebody want a second?
Second.
Okay. Jeff,
Yep.
Yes, aye.
Joe,
You wanna connect to audio and video. You wanna connect to audio and video.
Joe,
Joe,
can
can-
you mute?
Joe, do you want to
Yeah,
accept the minutes?
Sorry?
Want to accept those minutes?
Say
Accepted.
that again. I'm sorry. I'm
Motion
trying to
to
help Bill
accept.
here.
Okay, do you want to accept those minutes that we were just reviewing?
Yes, sorry. I was glancing at him. Yeah.
Chris
Yes, sir. Seconded.
and Doug
Yes. Approved.
and myself. Okay. Was that all we had for back minutes?
Yeah, we had
You had?
August 12th, but I
We
wasn't
had
at that
August
meeting.
12th, but those are still in progress by Doug, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So if you send those over to me, I'll get those to the town clerk. With the one from February that they needed as well. I'll find those. Okay. Now if you can stop sharing, I'll share my screen again. Okay. Reorganization of the committee for the new year. Do we want to make any changes in our positions? I am willing to remain as chair if it is the pleasure of the board.
I will gratefully accept your offer.
Seconded.
Okay. Jeff, do you want to remain as secretary?
Sure, unless Lauren wants it back.
You're on mute, Lauren.
Said I will take it back next year.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll take a
And
2-year turn.
Vice chair?
Yeah, I'm glad to continue on unless somebody else wants to give it a go. I'd be glad to see if somebody else wants to step up.
Okay, do we I'll make a motion that Doug remain as vice chair. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Second.
Okay. Can I have one motion to accept all of these positions that we just talked about?
You got the
Myself
wrong.
Make a
Chair.
motion to accept all these things as presented.
Yes. And somebody can
You
second
gotta
that?
I'll second it.
Okay. And Jeff,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
Aye.
and Joe's aye, and
Aye.
myself as well. Okay, so we've reorganized and basically.
I think you're opening the agenda from, I can't even get into my emails now.
Okay. Time to start looking at the capital.
I don't know, Bill.
Joe,
Like
mute
you-
yourself.
Yeah, Joe, we can hear your conversation on your cell phone. Ask it.
All right, so let me bring up, first on the list is the Highway Department with Mr. Taylor. So if I could bring up Mr. Taylor's projects. This top one looks very interesting, Dave.
Which one's that? Fuel management?
The fuel management system.
Well, that's not just highway. That's a town-wide.
It's a multi-departmental
Yes,
request.
correct.
So
You want me to just
why
go
don't
down?
we start with that one? I'm assuming it's gonna be highway, it'll go get put in the highway department's as a highway department request, but it'll be used by all departments. Is that the idea?
Yes, currently, right now, I mean, it used to be at the old Rockland Police Station at where the old Tedeschi's used to be for the old timers on here. But it got moved down to the highway in the early 90s. So it is what we do is we monitor the diesel and the gasoline tanks at our facility, and that is for every town department. So it's monitored by my assistant Sue. Everybody has a fob for every vehicle, and they use their employee identification numbers to identify who is getting gasoline at the times. The problem is we've been having some issues with the tanks. And for the last few years, we can't fill the tanks completely up. We're not compliant with the fire retardant system on the system, and honestly, the system is archaic to say the least as far as how we monitor it. It has its own computer. Looks like something from like the early 80s, like the old Commodore 64 computer. So it makes it a little hard to say the least, but to say the least, the system is very outdated and we've got our time out of it. So we're about at the same point. Norwell had the same issue and they just switched out this year. So we've been getting cost on it, and it's pretty much this would be everything from all the conduit, the piping, the electrical, the computer, the fob system or a card system. And it also would what we would end up doing is we have three tanks right now. If we go down to a 10,000 gallon tank and split it 70% gasoline and 30% diesel, it's a substantial savings for the town, and it also is not regulated by the EPA and the DEP guidelines that would once we go over 10,000 gallons. So the town of Norwell just did this, and we went over and took a look at their system. They had the same thing. They had multiple tanks and they went to one split tank. It's just a matter of having a company come out and fill the tanks up a little bit more frequent. So it would be a lot. We'd probably save $200,000 or $300,000 by doing that. It also would include a canopy with a fire retardant system, which is we do not have that now, and it also would include a oil separator in case there was a spill. That has to be monitored by the MS4 stormwater permit that we have now with DEP and the EPA. So it's a substantial project, and it's been on hold for honestly about 3 years. So when Doug Lapp came in, we kind of brought it up, and I think I just said we could probably limp it along for a few years so we could try to get financially a little bit more stable, but we're right there now, so where we can't probably get another year out of it safely at least. So
And Dave, it sounds like what you're suggesting is that it would basically pay for itself within about 2.5 to 3.5 years.
Yeah, were there savings over the life of the tank, or is that like annually?
well, no, it's not the savings of the system. It's what the problem is. If we're at the point now where we could have a system failure with the tank, we can't fill the tanks up completely. I mean, they're properly inspected, but the fall off rate on these tanks, if you can imagine, they're above ground. They were installed in the early 90s. So and when the building was put up in 99, they updated the computer system. So the problem is it's out of compliance with a couple different issues. So I think the big savings would be for us to go from what we have now is 2 diesel tanks, 1 gasoline, and we'd be going down to 1 10,000 gallon tank, but we'd split it 70-30. So it'd probably be something where we get gas every 3 weeks. We might be getting it every week and a half, as far as deliveries. So,
What are the
but
savings
that,
been though? That's the part I wasn't following.
oh,
'Cause
the savings is if we just went down to one tank, a 10,000 gallon tank, because right now we have a 8,000 gallon tank, a 6,000 and a 4,000. But if we go down to a 10,000 gallon tank and then we're only doing one pump, it's a savings of about 250 to 300.
So the
And it
savings is
also-
because you're not doing multiple tanks if you replace the system as is. it
That's
would-
correct.
Okay, I see.
Right.
So that savings is lifetime savings, not necessarily annual savings.
That's correct. Right. And then what it also does, it's obviously, I mean, you got 30 years essentially out of the old system. And then a lot of that was moved from the old system.
Mhm.
So, and then we're looking at maybe if we could, there's still towns and cities that operate this type of system. If we're able to maybe procure some of the parts out, because I know the parts are hard to get. So we might be able to, hopefully we might be able to sell some of it for salvage. So other towns maybe they'd be interested in buying, some of the old computer parts and the circuitry boards, the pumps. Because that's what we do right now. We should try to find a part. So
How long, for a new fuel management system, how long do you expect that to be useful, like the useful life?
Where's the
Well,
lifespan of it?
yeah, I mean, I'm assuming from the companies I talk to, we probably get another 30 years out of it, maybe more. I mean, we're trying to make it so we're thinking of the future. So it's not just something that's going to fix the current problem, but as long as maybe we can, if we ever had to add on to it, we would have the capability to add on to it. And then we would also, we went with the best, as far as the, computers, to get it up to date, whether it's hooked up to like a GIS type / Bluetooth. I'm not an IT guy, but there's just so many different ways, and I'm sure we'll cross over into our computer system as opposed to having a separate. So we're still looking into that, the management system itself, as we plan it, running the conduit and any of the essentials infrastructure for it. We'll obviously do more than less, just in case there was an issue or an add-on. But we don't foresee an add-on. I mean, honestly, Norwell's very equivalent to us. And we literally went over, looked at theirs, and we did the takeoff on their system, which is exactly this. So, and this also includes, like the concrete pads, the infrastructure that we would be doing in-house, and then also, replacing the asphalt that's disturbed by the project. They would literally do a bypass, so it wouldn't go exactly where our old system is. So our old system would run until the new system was up, and then they'd shut down the old system. So it's a big project for the town, understandably, so.
Can I ask
So
a
your
time?
understanding from your conversations with Norwell, this is the best option out there today as far as longevity, cost, and otherwise?
That's correct. I mean, we looked at some of the other systems in Springfield, Westwood, but obviously those are bigger towns, so they have bigger systems. So and then talking with a couple of the companies that bid on, they mentioned that Norwell, just did an equivalent system. So I reached out to the director over there and went out, had a conversation, and he actually pulled up all the process that he went through. So the do's and don'ts, and so we have a good grasp on how we should move forward with it. Obviously, with the cost of materials right now, it's not an opportune time, but it's one of those things where I don't think we're going to be able to get another year out of it, because if this was approved, you're looking at you shovels in the ground maybe in the late summer, so the system wouldn't probably be up and going till fall. So, and that's pretty much where we'd be with that. So,
Okay.
Quick question on timing. So this sounds like, based on what you just said, would be an FY23 expense. And you had mentioned that you've been talking about it for a couple of years. So why not bring it forward and put it on the plan, a couple of years out, 4 years out, at the time when you were initially talking about it, as opposed to bringing it forward this point when it's going on and it's going on for that fiscal year?
Right, so that's a good question. So the originally, we thought we might just replace the tanks. So we were having issues with the tanks. But by the time originally a couple of years ago, we thought, well, maybe we get a cost on the tank. But just to replace the tanks and removal of a tank is almost $200,000.
Hmm.
So, and then we're like, well, maybe we can just hold on to it for a little bit and we'll just run the system the way it is. And then, we swapped out one of the pumps, and then, the maintenance on it isn't too bad, except if we have a storm, we'll go down in the storms and we have to reboot it. But it's literally, the system is a dial-up system. So it's, if we have issues during a storm, or if it was a blizzard or something and a system went down, we do have a backup. We contingency plan, we get gas at a different place, but obviously we're not getting it at state procurement prices at that point. So
Right.
It's one of those things, like I said, it's out of compliance as far as fire department, because there's no fire retardant system. It's very basic. We have a very archaic system. It's literally some buckets with some speedy dry and spills system set up where it's not, it's making it work. It's just, moving forward. Obviously we want to get it up to future prospects, so to say the least.
You might have mentioned this and I might have missed it. Are there any grant money available, or how are you guys funding that?
We looked at it. I mean, there's no grant money per se for a fuel system. We might be able to get something for, drainage, when the infrastructure grant comes out, as far as the separator up in that area, in the spill area. But that hasn't come down. I mean, it's still the state and the federal, funds right now for the infrastructure. They haven't really been, they haven't really told us where they're going. I know the Plymouth County, as far as the opera funds, we can't use it for that. So they're concentrating more on sewer and water right now, and then some obviously broadband. So we looked at different avenues. I mean, Chapter 90 money, but if we start using the Chapter 90 money, then we're obviously that's our area where we're doing roads and everything else that we're doing as far as the infrastructure. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this is going in 2023. Do we have any other questions on the fuel management system?
No?
Okay, the next item we have is a 6-wheel dump truck.
So
You
this
said
is,
that I'm sorry, you said that 750 is they're gonna put the warrant in 2023?
Yes,
Is that all gonna be have to be paid out in 1 year? Are we gonna need to bond it? Are we gonna try to pay for the whole thing in 1 year? Do you know?
Rich, would you like me to speak to that? The short answer is I have no idea. We haven't even really figured out our revenues yet. So right now we're just getting stuff on the capital plan. We're looking at all the needs. We'll start to prioritize and then we'll figure out how we're going to pay for things. But we don't have the
Okay.
answer to that question yet. But I can say that based on all my discussions with Dave Taylor, this item is critical. So this will definitely be at the top of my list.
I get it. Okay.
and just as a reminder, we look at the projects from the capital planning committee. We look at the projects based on need and on a need basis and how and what the department heads say they need. As far as how it's paid for, that's for the finance committee and Doug and town accountant and everybody else to figure out exactly how it's going to get paid for. whether it's bonded, whether it's this, that, or the other thing. You know, we do worry, you know, we do ask if there's grants available, but it's not our top responsibility as far as, you know, how it's necessarily being paid for. It's more of
Correct.
finance.
Yeah, we're just, our job is just to make sure that it's on the plan stated correctly how it's being financed. And the other departments, you're right, have to tell us how it's being financed.
Right. Yep.
And keep in mind, this is, like I said, this is a multi-department use. So this is where everybody in the town, every town vehicle fills up. We're just the ones that manage the system. So this is police, fire, schools, sewer, water, you know, this is every department. So
Okay, so the next item on your list, Dave, is a six-wheel dump truck.
that's correct. So
Is this the one that was on the list from last year?
there was on an original list, I think a few years ago, but we took some off, and then we did the smaller truck last year, the F-550.
Right.
So the problem is, you know, I've been on for 6 years, so we've been mostly concentrating on obviously the roads and the infrastructure, and not as much on the equipment. We've been trying to do the basics on the equipment, but the problem is as our accountant will attest, that what we do is when we're close to where a truck or a machine is falling off, as we would say, where it's losing its longevity, we bring it over to the snow for snow and ice. And then what we do is we rip it down, and it's only set up for a plow and a sander at some point. So these are a couple of those vehicles where they're going to start dropping off, and we're starting to put more than they're worth. You know, if I got to put $5,000 into that to replace that number 804, that dump truck, you know, that's not what it's not worth that for us. Even if we're using it for sanding, it's still not, the savings isn't there anymore at that point. So it's dropped off. So that is to replace, it's one of the oldest trucks we have in the fleet, the 1997 International dump truck. So it's a standard. It's actually millennial proof, to say the least. You can't, you know, if you can't drive an automatic, then I'm a standard.
Are you still going to use that 1997 dump truck
This one,
for plowing and stuff?
the 804 is what we have been using it for. So since I've been here, we used it for 1 year out in the general, we call it a general pop, like it gets used all the time. And it's fallen off to the point where this has been used for the last 5 years for sanding and plowing. So what we would do, yeah, this would go out to bid, or we would try to find a good trade value for it right now. Again, the problem is putting it out to bid or a trade value. It's a standard, and nobody's buying a manual transmission truck. We would rip down the sander and the plow mechanisms off of it, and then it would probably go out to either bid or trade it in on another smaller piece of equipment. So like I said, that's been used just for sanding and plowing, and not as much plowing as has been sanding. Right now, it's a backup for sanding. Let's put it that way. It's not, that's the last resort that we have somebody hopping into. There's 2 guys that will use it, and I'm one of them. So that's about it.
Now, did you get the 550 last year?
We did. So that's a little higher than a 1-ton truck. So this right here is typically what we have over GVW. So they're CDL. So this is equivalent to what the water department did last year. It's an under CDL. It still requires an A license if you're trailering, but it does not require a B license. So it's something if you're in the middle of like somebody driving a 1-ton to a over CDL, this is a good truck for that. So we don't have that truck like that right now. So it's in between the 550 that we have, which is 17.5 GVW 19, and then up to like a 33, 36 is what are the bigger trucks that we have. So for the cost, for what we looked at, when we looked at a 33,000 GVW truck, the cost of one of those was about 150 to 160. So what I thought might be better is that where we also needed the item underneath that, the service body, is we would go with a smaller GVW truck, a 25.9, save half of that and be able to maybe get the vehicle underneath to replace the other 1997 service body. Because that came back and it failed inspection due to framework. So that is, we got it patched out for minimal, but again, once you have frame damage on a truck, it's not of a use for any heavy loading or anything. So that's where we are with the 6-wheeler dump. So it's not a CDL. It's under the GVW that requires a heavy licensure. So we opted for that where it was obviously a little cheaper. So
What is the limit for CDL for GVW?
25.9, that's the GVW of that truck. So once you go to 30,000, you need a special licensure for it,
The CDL.
for the CDL. That's
Yeah.
why we opted for the 25.9.
So anybody without a CDL can drive it. Okay.
That's correct, yeah. Yeah, and that would be the only truck we have like that. So we, like I said, we have the 550 was the biggest truck we got last year, and that's a 17.5. 17.5. And then after that, put it this way, if with the F550, you could probably haul, 3 to 4 tons of material. With the 25.9, that's 6 to 7 tons. And then with our 33,000 GVW trucks, it's about 10. So that's how it's rated, by tonnage.
Hey, Rich, can I ask a quick question, if it's okay? Dave, can you just confirm the cost? Because I had on my sheet 88,000 for that. Did the price go up?
Let me just check what I had on mine. No, I think it did actually, Doug. So what I did is I originally had 88, and then I reached out to Joe Lapointe over at Water, and he gave me the specs that he just pulled up. I called the company, and then I got the last of the procurement, and that's the cost of the truck with a plow on it. So
Okay, thanks.
yeah. Oh, sander. I'm sorry, sander. You want me to go over the third one?
Yep.
So the third one, again, I touched on it a little bit. So what we have is we have a service body where it actually has a fuel distribution system on it, a portable one. So if we're out, obviously, if we're doing storm damage or machines have to be filled up during a snowstorm, we have that. But again, that system it's on a 1997, so obviously it's getting into, it's a little bit of an antique right now. The truck did just fail inspection, the last inspection due to frame damage, just because of the age of it. We did have it fixed to get us through for right now, but again, that's probably to 1997, and it's at its fall off rate. It is not a truck that we use for sanding and plowing. It's something we send. We have college kids that come in and do the shoveling for us at the town buildings. It's something that the college kids would drive out, with a couple of other trucks that we don't have plows or sanders on. So it's and it also is what it is. It's a service body, so it has. It's able to have all our tools in it. So it's when they're doing signage or they're doing road work, they have a lot of the tools in this truck. We opted for the same GVW to replace this truck, and then also with a portable fuel management system on that as well. So to meet the compliancy of the fire codes. Again, that truck would end up going out to probably bid, we'd have that at like an auction. We're trying to set that up for late spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I back up a second?
Sure.
On the six-wheel dump truck, what year did you want to put that on the plan? Current year or?
We'd like to, yes,
So that's for fiscal year.
yeah. I'm assuming with once we sell that other truck, I would assume it would be, the most we'd get for that truck would be around 5,000. And then, I mean, auctions are tricky, or sometimes it might be better in trade. And if we were looking to get a sander at the end of the year, we might be able to trade that with a company and at least might get a little bit more money for it. So we're looking at different options for that.
So that's going to be 2023 as well, because in May, we're voting for fiscal year 23, right?
That's
Yep.
correct. Yeah.
All right.
And that's the service body as well.
That's 2023 as well. All right.
Yeah.
Oof.
It makes sense. I mean, Dave shared that he babied it for the last 5 years. It's just come to the end of the road.
I don't think this change. They're from 1997. I'm just curious how many miles are on these vehicles. Like I don't, like I said, I don't think it changes anything. I'm just curious.
No, I mean, I think the dump truck is around 50,000,
Yeah,
54, which
but
is
they're a hard 50,000 miles too, though, right?
right. And then the service body is up and around 90s because that truck's used a lot.
Mhm.
So, keep in mind, like if they're doing sign work or we're doing striping, that's the truck they typically will load up and with a trailer. I mean, like I said, we looked at, if that didn't come back with we were looking at that one maybe a couple years or down the road, and we were going to replace the body, maybe get 5 years out of it. But with the frame damage, like we might be able to get another 5,000 for that, as an auction. But if we wait any longer, we won't get anything for it. Somebody will give us 500 for scrap. So that's the way I'm looking at it.
Makes sense.
And like I said, and then after this, we would get a plan on what we do is we replace this 804 essentially with a different truck that's like a 2004. And that has taken its spot, like as far as plowing and sanding, where it's just a plowing and sanding truck. So you have to keep in mind too, like the amount of like road work and like the curbing, like keep in mind that all that demo work is done in-house. So we roughly save 25% to a third on that, but it's also, these trucks were fairly new when I got here, but now they're all being used a lot. So, so then I have the roof repairs. So we've started those roof repairs now.
Actually, the roof repairs is under $50,000, so that we don't
Yeah.
have to really talk about that one.
Okay. And then the Beach Street, Spring Street project is the one that we started last year. So, and that's a continuation of that.
Yep, we have that one on the plan, so that's continuation. That's another $200,000, which is on the plan for this year.
Correct.
And then there's 200,000 on the plan for that for next year as well.
That's correct. And the Goddard Ave project is under 50. So that was, maybe an article, or we might have to, depending on where we are financially, that might have to get kicked to chapter 90. We were looking to put that under a Safe Streets grant, but the Safe Street grant has not kicked in. We haven't been doing it long enough, so. And the last one was microsurfacing roads in 2022. And that is something we'd like to move forward to every couple of years. What we've been doing is a lot of the roads, as opposed to putting a top coat on, is we've been using microsurfacing, and they're holding up better. The top coats just don't have as much emulsion or oils in them. So any of the roads, even that we did 10 years ago, are already cracking, and you don't get that with the microsurfacing. So we're looking to go back on a few roads before they fall off. And then also on the new road construction design, on anything that we did this year, what we've done is we did a heavy binder, so it had more structure, and we would go over it with the microsurfacing moving forward. I just think like if we're taking a 180 out of the budget every year or every 2 years, we're not gonna have much in our general budget. So if we had a plan where we did this every 2 years, it might help us out and get caught up on the roads that have fallen off or that are getting close. Keep in mind, anything that's like 7 to 10 years old, those roads are already, they're cracking, and as soon as you lose some of the aggregate on the top coat, that's the beginning of a pothole. So we're trying to supersede that where we could get some roads and hold on a little longer.
Hey, Dave,
Yeah,
is that microsurfacing? Is that a piece of equipment we're buying, or are we outsourcing that to another
That's-
company and that's the cost?
yeah, that's the cost of it.
Of what?
And
A piece of equipment or outsourcing it?
no, that's like a contractor that comes in and does it for us.
All right, so we're paying somebody. We don't own a piece of equipment, but it's a
No.
cost. Okay.
Yeah. No,
Dave, how long do you think the microsurfacing buys before you're gonna have to do something more drastic? Or can you do it multiple times and just kind of keep working that microsurface process in perpetuity?
yeah, so we looked at it when I first came on 6 years ago. So we looked on like who had the best roads. Like I think I've said this before. So and then we reached out to the town of Hingham's because essentially if you drive through Hingham, all the roads are in really great shape. They started microsurfacing in 1999, and some of the roads haven't even had to be redone yet in 99. They're held up. So a lot of those roads are off of like Gardner Street, all those side streets that connect to Whiting. The center was from like late 90s, Hingham Center, and they're just starting to do it over now. So it's just longevity wise, it's like you get more structure on doing my idea is if we do a binder coat, a heavy binder coat, we don't do a top, we do this, you don't get the heavy cracking like we do. I mean, you would if you're doing a mill, like if you're milling a road, like I've learned over the last few years, like we may come in, mill a road and then put more structure on it. Like what we did on Upper Union, we didn't put a top coat. We did what they call a micro binder. So it has a little bit more structure and it's holding up. And a lot of the towns are starting to move more towards that as opposed to like a tight, smooth surface. And then because you can go over it where it has more aggregate, thicker aggregate with a micro eventually down the road. And then it just lasts longer. You know what I mean? A road falls off 7 to 10 years now with a top coat. And these are, you're looking at 10 to 20 years on these. So, and in some cases, if it's a side road, we've been experimenting on a small aspect of this the last few years on like side streets and it like, and how we do it with, mill and fill. And then, but I think the best way is to, go over something that has a heavy aggregate in it or a binder. And then I think we're going to get more longevity. I just don't want to see us get back into where we were, 10 years ago, going for, road override. We're very close to within the next 5 years, being in a very good spot if we move forward, not get hung up, but, a maintenance standpoint, it's going to be a little easier.
So then, Dave, based on what you said, if we put the 180,000 in 2023 for the list that you have for this year, and then in 2 years, 2025, I put a placeholder in for microsurfacing roads, and then again in 2027, microsurfacing roads, another 180,000.
That's correct.
And
then
to plan it out over the 5 years.
Right.
That makes sense. That kind of like what you're looking at.
It does, because keep in mind too, so when we do our procurement, we do all our own contracts in-house. So we don't hop on like a Plymouth County. You get more control over it. Like the Plymouth County is a bid that's every year. And it's usually our bids, we've been getting a lower rate from our microsurfacing and also our paving contracts. So this year here, it's critical for this because this year here, I have to put the microsurfacing contract back out. And if we do that and we're locked into this, that same rate will apply in year 3 because we do a 3-up. You know, we're allowed to re-up it the second year and the third year as far as microsurfacing. So that would still be good the third year. So. And then eventually we get to the point where, you know, we're not doing it every 2 years. Maybe it's every 4 years or every 5 years, you know, because we're all caught, we're getting caught up. You know, those roads have all been done. So.
Okay. So then, you had the million paving of Gardner Street was approved for last year, correct?
That's correct. We started that project, so that's if anybody's driven up there. So we have at the very beginning of the year, National Grid started the project, and then we were pushing them to try to do the whole road. They only wanted to do half of it. So eventually, once they were going to do their hookup, they realized that we were right and that the pipes just weren't worth saving, because once we put that road's going to be a reclaim, we put a reclaim machine on it, it will literally rattle anything underneath the infrastructure and the old pipes. And at that point, if the road broke after the fact, if anything broke underneath it, National Grid would own the road and they would have to cut us a check to redo the road. So obviously they don't want to, you know, cut us a check for $180,000, $200,000. So they went back to engineering and now they're finishing up the project. So they should be done this week with the mains on that road. They're from the 50s. And then they'll be doing the services next week. And then that road will be done late spring this year. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So the next things on your list I see here is the miscellaneous road patches due to breaks and major repairs. Is that an under $50,000 item?
What do I have that? Oh yeah, so that's just something I put on there. You know, I wasn't necessarily for this year. I mean, it's just something to bring up to capital planning. It's you know, if you have water main breaks a lot, and I know water is kind of like limping along on their budget, if at some point we might have to, like we had that major break at, you know, the lower end of Beach Street the year before, and then we had the major break at West Water and Plain Street this year, and we've had 2 breaks over on Weymouth Street. So, and then, you know, to go back and try to get that done, it's just, it's a lot of money, and honestly, the water department doesn't have it, so I'm not sure how to go about proceeding, where maybe that's something we do every few years, where we go back, and that's not just water, it would be sewer, or, I mean, gas gets fixed by the gas company, that as far as longevity, so we have that in place. So it's not, it would just mostly be like if it's water or sewer, you know, mostly get a big break from anything else. So I just wanted that up there, and just so you know, we might be looking something down the road on that.
Would that
You have
fall
a-
under, Rich, there was an item that was on the, before the annual one that had the like road repaving and repair, and there was like 400K every year, and then it goes up to 500K.
That's the chapter
Right.
90.
Is that different? Sorry for being naive on this. Is that different, that what you're talking about now doesn't fall into that?
No, yeah, that's something we talked about at finance. So when I first came on, they eventually increased the budget up to 500.
But that doesn't address this number 8 on your list here, the miscellaneous road patches due to breaks
Well,
and repairs.
It could. That's the only reason I have that miscellaneous road patches in there. It's all dependent on where we are budget wise. So again, right now, we're still using a lot of our budget where we're using it on roads, but a lot of it's still getting used on drainage repairs. The same issue that the sewer department is having with I&I, we're having over on drainage too, and they both run parallel to each other. So that's the problem. We're looking for different sources as opposed to taking it out of the budget, because we're using our budget for absolutely everything right now. You know, drainage, any type of repairs. So
Now, the road, so the road repairs that went from 400 to 500, is that going to continue to 500,000 in 2027 as well?
well, we're hoping, I mean, I know at one point, I know we talked in finance a few years ago, you guys have slowly incremented our budget up to where it is now. We eventually wanted to get up to, 500, that plus the chapter 90. You realistically have 300 or so to do road repairs, and then you have, the other 400, we're a little over 4 with chapter 90. So that obviously, but we've got some decent projects coming up that we have here. And then, keep in mind the reason why we did the Beach Street project was because we had National Grid coming before us to replace all the mains from the 1940s, because it's been crazy with leaks up there. I know it's awful, but what we do is we take the finish patching, which we require National Grid to do half the road. We take that off. They pay $200 a ton. We only pay 75. So we're able to take the checks and do the whole road over. So that's trying to get the two projects together. So.
Just trying to go through your list to make sure that everything that was on there before we've hit.
Yeah.
And I believe we have.
This will be a game changer for this house.
Okay. And I'm assuming these 3 tower lights is under 50,000?
Yes. Between 12 and 15 a light. And that was just something, we don't have those through the town right now, so we don't have any tower lights. So we're usually renting them or we're borrowing them. So, talking with the chiefs, both Scott and John, we thought it might be something to put into, our emergency management where the tower lights, we could put them in a garage down here so they're out of the weather. And then whenever a department needs them, they're readily available, even for night work. Like if we do any night work, we have to rent a tower light,
Right.
for doing it, so.
Oh my gosh, it made difference. Well, this wall's all gonna come out, so imagine how much.
Well, that would be, obviously, that's like I put down there, that would be a multi-department use. Those would be, for the town, so.
Okay.
And also, now I sort of feel like, look how small this room is. I feel like this room's gonna look tiny.
So the next, while we have Dave here,
Well, you're talking about moving the
let's
kitchen.
go right to
Right here, right, so we have this wall.
sewer. Because Dave gets to talk to us about sewer as well.
In this area. The big island right here. And you know what you're
Next item on the agenda.
the poster doesn't stand out anymore. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's gonna cost at least.
So I can, I have a list here, so I have them in the order of priority. If that's all right, do you want me to go down the list? Do you want me to
All
go?
right, that's fine. Which one do you want to start with?
Well, I'll just go by what you have, Rich. So the digester building roof. So right now, we put together, the last time I was over at Sewer, we started the digester boiler and Keith finished it up. So they've been working with multi-articles and combining them of some of the leftover. And then to do the digester boiler, which if anybody knows, that's where all the effluent and the sludge goes to burn off. So that's a substantial savings to the town as opposed to doing a lot of sludge removal. So that the digester boiler is getting done. So part of that is obviously the digester boiler roof, building roof at some point. Doesn't necessarily have to be FY23, because obviously we're not going to have the funds over here for that right now. So we're looking at ARPA funds right now, but also the one right underneath that, the digester building gas lines. Rich, if you scroll down a little.
This one's definitely my favorite. I mean, the brick is different, it's unique.
Right. So if you look at that, that would be probably the next priority, because the issue is they're doing the digester boiler room over, and the gas piping is not going to make compliancy. So that's going to have to get done. We're also looking into, we're trying to look into ARPA funds, but obviously water department, between water and sewer right now, it's a tight race and see what funds are going to be available. So, but in order the digester boiler room would have to get done, the pumps, the compressors, and then the second stage of that would be these digester building gas lines that go throughout the building.
So would you say that these gas lines are a priority for this year or?
Yes, yeah.
But
I mean, the roof has been patched up and we're able to make that limp along. I mean, if there's a revenue source available as far as a grant or something, we might be able to. But as far as these, the high priority would be these digester building gas lines.
so we're gonna put the building roof on the plan, but we're gonna put it out, not in 23, but what, 24, 25?
I mean, you want to, while we're working on the digester boiler, I would probably go to 24 and then we'll see where we are as far as, at that point.
Yeah, we can always change it
Right.
when we're looking at 24 and push it
Correct.
out.
Dave, how old is that current roof on that building? Do you know?
Oh, that's 70s, 80s. And I know it has been patched and probably overlaid. We've done, the last time before Keith came on, I was there last year and we did some roof repairs. I mean, we have, items for that to just, it's a rubber roof, flat roof.
Okay.
So that roof, in order to keep that digester, but, keep in mind too, we're still doing a lot of, we haven't got to the design stage on the plant yet. So that I wouldn't want to see us do a substantial cost until we get a design on the plant.
Yep.
The gas lines in that digester boiler are obviously something that's going to be used. So the digester recirculator pumps. So I mean, the last time what I did is I put an article on before just for pumps and maintenance. Again, it's something that's going to have to be done. It might be something we have to put on hold. Again, the priority at sewer right now would be the gas lines, and then we're going to have to, there's the effluent meters that are above the digester roof. And that's going to be part of the DEP permit. We just got the NIPD's permit, and the effluent meters are on the backside of the plant. And that's going to be something required that we have to do within a year. So that's probably a little further down, Rich. Yeah, again, the chlorine system is something that's going to have to get added. But again, it's probably something when you want to wait till the plant design is done or close to it. And then the inflow and infiltration, Rich, if you hold that. So the inflow and infiltration, talking with Elizabeth, what we've done is we've worked 200,000 into the budget, the general budget. And then, as you guys know, that, we were operating on almost a negative budget. So the rates went up $1 and we raised the base rate up $10 to get us currently where we're going to be at probably close to a plus 20,000 in the budget. So, and then that's working in inflow and infiltration of 200,000 into the budget. So that there is just, it's something we'd have to come back to at some point. Quite honestly, the only way we're going to be able to pay that is, once we get a rate study done, and then if we're getting some developmental fees, and then and smaller developments are doing paying for flow and infiltration. So
because right now on the plan, all we have is 100,000 for inflow and infiltration remediation.
Right. So that is going to be up to 200,000 for our budget. But
For 2023.
right.
For each year, for 2 years, or?
That's for per year. That'll be worked into our budget, general budget. It's 100 now, Rich. So we're looking to boost that up. So that's worked into our budget. But then again, it's also going to be based on the receipts at the plant too. Again, we're working off of receipts to do the articles. So.
And is that going to be ongoing like it was, or?
What is that? The inflow and infiltration?
Yeah.
Yes.
So is that for additional repairs to what's existing now?
Infrastructure. So that inflow and infiltration is everything out into the field. So, we did that AECOM study last year that was done at night, and all all the calcs and everything's been done on that, where they will literally tell us what we need to fix, where we need to fix, how much it costs, and then the values that will be the gallons that we'd be getting back, whether for the credits. So, so it's something obviously we need to work, because obviously that's going to take stress off of the plant. That's less water into our system, less
So it's-
storm.
So this sounds like the scope of that project changed because we got the study back and there was just a little bit more than we initially planned. Does that sound about right?
That's exactly right. But again, if we don't have the receipts for it, it's the sewer department, we're not gonna have the money. So we have to really prioritize what we're using the money for. And so this is something you probably want to keep on for next year, but it's not something we're gonna have the money for probably this year. So unless, again, once we're doing a rate study, and then also if it opens up at some point for a smaller developmental, even if it's a condo or a house or something, those are fees that can help. Anything that's paying, it has to be 11-to-1 ratio back, I. So that's the only way we're gonna be able to fund that. So.
Oh, this was the, hang on a second.
Dave, did that study give you an indication of like how many years at 200K we'd have to do this before we'd get to a more reasonable annual kind of maintenance plan?
Well, we'll put it this way. They, like there are some big hits out there on that plan, that will cost us maybe, 10,000, like say, one of the ones that I was out at night was on Summer Street and Harlow Road. There was a major one out there, like thousands and thousands a gallon. It would cost us probably 10 grand to fix that. So to get probably 10,000 gallons a day back. So that's $1 again. That's a big hit.
Yeah.
So, that's what we're looking to do, is some of those big hits, and then also trying to get in front of where we're doing the road work. Like, well, obviously, if we have manholes where we've got road work coming up next year, those would be the manholes
Right.
we want to do the work on. So we're not going back at it after we do the, Moncrief as an example. We're doing that road over with half of the funds are from National Grid, but they didn't get much of the manholes done as far as sewer. The drainage is done on our end, but now we have to get some of the sewer stuff done so we can move forward with that project in the summer of next year. So
Do you have to rip up the roads to fix some of these things, or depends?
yes. So if you look, just case in point, if you look at Wyman's Field, a lot of that drainage that road was done, I think in 2014, it was before, our administration came on. And so a lot of that stuff is blowing out now, a lot of the drainage. So you'll see patches. So obviously, sewer manholes in the middle of the street, usually center line. You want to try to get all that. If it's a rebuild and a sealing of the manhole, so we're not having that infiltration, now's the time to do it, a year or two out. So
Right.
that's what we're trying to do. And you still, is something as simple as us changing a manhole cover is what we've been doing. Even when John Laughlin was on, John would say, well, you take care of the sewer covers and, you get a credit for 1,000 gallons. That's a per year, but even if we're doing 40 sewer covers, that's 40,000 gallons a year. So it's as simple as a repair. So, which has to be done anyways. We're doing the roads. If you've got a sewer cover that's 40 or 50 years old, you might not be able to use it. So,
Right.
So you're solving a couple issues at the same time.
Yeah,
So
it's great. It's great that you're doing all of this to start to coordinate and collapse this work, and it's more integrated, clearly far more complex. But
so that affluent meter, Rich, is the one I was talking about. So we were just issued our NIPD's permit by the EPA and the DEP beginning of this year. So what one of the requirements are going to be is they want to know the flow exiting the plant, the clean water after it's treated. So that's something we don't have at the plant. So the affluent meters would help pay for that. Would require a little bit of a modification at the plant and then a meter. So that has to be done within a year, once we receive the permit, which is now. So we have till next January to get that done. So. So that's why I was saying as far as priority list would be the gas lines for the digester boiler and then also the effluent meter.
Now, is that covered by grant money at all? Because it sounds as though it's possibly.
Yeah, it might, again, like I said, we're like in preliminary stages of like looking at the ARPA funds, from like Plymouth County and then state level and then federal level, the federal level that really hasn't been released on what it's encompassing. I know everyone's talking, all the directors and superintendents and all the area towns. We have meetings once a month. No one knows where all the money's going yet. So, I mean, the Plymouth County, the town hall, Elizabeth and Doug and Jen, they've got a good grasp on what we have, but we're obviously, that's for the whole town and we're having issues over at the water department, obviously. So, those are gotta all be divided up on how we can use them. So we're still at a, kind of a little bit of a crossroads as far as all the infrastructure everywhere on the road. So,
Okay.
yeah. But this is something.
So the main things that you need for this year is the effluent meter and the gas lines.
That's correct. I mean, if I was to put it in a priority list, those are the two top priorities. And then obviously, then you'd be looking at, I think the next thing would be, at some point you got to look at the roof. But again, I would suggest you hold off on that for right now.
I'm on a line here, Pat. I'm on a meeting.
So because we haven't even got to the design stage of the plant yet. So there's no sense of putting 400 or 500 into the roof. If we could keep it patched up, maintenance wise, and then till we get a good read on that. You might be putting different mechanicals on the roof, might require the structure of the roof to be redesigned. So you'd be like putting the cart before the horse right now. It's still something that has to be done. Probably leave it on the list, but maybe not for this year.
Now, is that 500,000? Is that an estimated cost, or did we get any quotes? I mean, I don't know anything about roof costs. I was just like a little sticker shock, like, wow, I can't believe it's that expensive to do something like a rubber roof. It just,
right.
Residential level, they're really, really cheap. So was like, what? That seems expensive. So.
Right. So that's including like pulling off some of the old mechanicals off the roof that have been left on the roof, doing any, whatever the structure, the underlayments of the roof, peeling off the old roof, the flashing, everything. So it's a big roof. So, and it's probably on the higher side because everything's on the higher side right now. And,
True.
and if everything goes up, I mean, nobody's going to bring anything down after they've been up. You know what I mean? It's so, if they're getting building materials have gone up, they're in all likelihood, they're never coming back down. So.
Okay.
Yep. And then as far as the chlorine system, obviously that's something that we want to get done at some point, maybe leave that on, but maybe not on the high priority of this list. And then the Spruce Street ejector station, we're doing butternut now. And then that is something we'd want to do because it's an antique over there and that gets a lot of infiltration as well. So that might not be something this year, but again, next year. So, I mean, Keith did a lot of these. I mean, a couple of them I had from my previous year, but Keith did a lot of this list, basing it on this year and then also the future. So.
Rich, can you send these out after this meeting, the forms that were submitted?
Yes, I will. I will attach them all.
Thank you.
I can send out too what I have to you, Rich, and if you want to distribute it to the board on like how we had them, like based on their priority. So.
Okay, that'd
Yeah.
be great. If you could send that to me, Dave, that'd be great.
Yep, you got it.
Could I get did you have anything else, Dave?
No, I think that's it, unless you guys have some questions on anything.
Should we just mention, so there were 3 things on the plan for this past year, assuming they all got done right, the pump station and injector station. What is
And the
that?
study.
well, there was the repair and replacement, then right, the study, and then the digester boiler, which I know you already mentioned. So that sounds like that's already going forward. So those other things can come off though, right? They got done or in process.
They're in the process right now, the injector station and the pumps. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, could I get a motion to accept Dave's presentation for both the highway department and the sewer department?
I'll make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
Seconded.
Joe seconded.
Yeah. So you got this all
Okay.
straight, Rich, on how this is gonna,
Yeah.
what needs to be put on the plan and what year of everything he just went through, right?
I'm actually been doing it as we're talking. I have the plan open on my other screen and been updating it as we're doing it.
Good man.
How about that?
I know.
So,
That's a
we
lot
got
of
a mo-
stuff.
we-
This is gonna kill us.
We have a motion. We have a motion and a second on the table. I need to take the vote. Jeff,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye.
Lauren,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
myself is an aye. Thank you very much, Mr. Taylor.
All right, thank you. Guys have a good night.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Dave.
Time to wake
Yeah.
up the police chief.
Yeah.
I mean, the fire chief. I don't even know where I am anymore.
The Oval Office, so that
Hello,
makes.
everybody.
Hi, Scott.
How are you, Scott?
I am good, thank you. Thank you for squeezing me in tonight.
No problem. Thank you for hanging in there.
Yeah, not a problem.
Good learning lesson for him, all that sewer and highway stuff.
No, you know what? It's funny, for some reason, I'm always on the agenda with the sewer department. From day one as being chief, my very first capital planning, I've always been with John Laughlin. So I love to hear about digesters and it's unbelievable. I'm happy it's not me, but I'm learning a lot.
No, I know with your
Let me-
engineering background, it interests you, but also
Yeah.
as a fire chief, it's good for the fire chief to know these things.
It's very good, yeah. No,
with
it
respect to
absolutely
those
is.
Departments.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that one. All right, so let me close Dave's out. Okay. The fire department. Before we get into the repairing of the floor of the existing fire department, where are we on the new fire station?
So we met. We met last night with the fire station building committee. We're starting to get that back going again after COVID, after probably 2.5 year hiatus with that. So we are starting to move forward with that and start looking back into it. We've had a study done over the past year. We had a study done to look at the town as a whole, response times, and to come up with, what's going to be the best plan for Rockland. So right now, no real answers for you. We're probably still looking at a single station in the center of town, hopefully.
Okay, so am I safe to assume that I'm at least pushing out the start to 2024?
At least.
Okay.
Bummer, by the way.
All right. So we have, let's see, floor repairs.
Okay,
Let's look at floor repairs.
so floor repair, so when you're looking at the fire station, the right-hand side of the fire station was built in 1938. There's been a couple remodels up there since. But the last remodel, they just went over the existing floors with tile. And what they did was they kicked the can down the road, and unfortunately, I'm the one that collected the can, because what they did was they covered over asbestos tiles.
Oh,
So now we have, you know, the top layer of tiles are popping up. They're coming up. I don't know if there were pictures with that capital request, but on that side of the station, all the tiles are popping up and, you know, exposing that asbestos, those asbestos tiles. Those asbestos tiles are still under there. They're still intact. I just don't want to see those to start popping up either. So the quotes that we have, the quotes that I received for part of this, about half of that 50,000 is for removal of all the tiles and the asbestos, you know, doing a complete asbestos abatement of the tiles, and then put a new layer of tiles down. You know, not going crazy, not putting marble floors in, obviously, because, you know, we're hoping, you know, we're hoping that this is just a stopgap to get us into a new station.
Okay. So that's 50,000.
Scott, did you talk when I'm assuming you talked to some, you know, flooring companies and whatnot with that. Did they make any recommendations just around some type of encapsulation or something? It sounds like that was the strategy previously, because I'm no expert, but I think the goal, right, is to keep it from being friable. So as long as it's sealed and down, like, no big deal. So before you go to the trouble, especially on a building we're not sure about what we're going to do with long term, is there a way to just kind of seal those tiles back down, or is it beyond that point?
So it would be beyond, because even the tiles that are popping up, one of the companies came in and, you know, they questioned whether the glue or the mastic or whatever they used, the cement to put them down, they said could even have asbestos in it. Even those are on the newer tiles. So there is a concern that even with those, you know, even we'd have to get rid of those. You know, and we just can't put like a third layer of tiles down. We'll be shaving doors and
Sure.
yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Just wanted to ask.
Yeah. Rich, you want me to just flow right into this next one that you have up?
Where did Rich go?
I'll make a motion to accept.
seconded.
Yeah, I would say he can go ahead and just start talking about it. We'll have to catch him up, but I don't know what's below this or what the next ones
What
are.
are we voting on right now?
We're just discussing and moving forward because it looks like Rich might be tending to something.
Jeff, you're still with us, right?
So we're on the truck. Is this truck gonna go
Yeah.
on the current
No
year? Or?
taken. Let's keep going.
Yep, there he is.
I'm
Just-
back.
All right.
We
Scott,
panicked.
is this gonna be in 20, is this gonna be in the current year, fiscal year for 23 or?
This one, the this pickup truck?
Yeah,
Yes.
2023, you need
Yes.
to do it? All right,
So, yeah, so what this would do is right now we have 4 administrative cars. We have my vehicle, the deputy's vehicle, we have the day fire prevention officer's vehicle, and then we have kind of the last, we call it C4. It's kind of the vehicle that the firefighters and on-duty staff will use to run errands, you know, go plug out a fire alarm system out of a building. They'll grab lunch, kind of an all around, you know, kind of a general purpose vehicle. The current vehicle right now is a 2004 Chevy Tahoe that when I made chief, we bought it from the town of Hingham. It's the old Hingham Fire Chief's car. We bought this car 10 years ago for $3,300. So,
We got our money's worth.
yeah, we got our money's worth. So unfortunately, we're probably putting in $3,400 a year now into it to keep it running. It barely passed inspection last year because of rust. And so we need to replace this car. It probably won't make inspection this year. We'll try and get it there. If it doesn't, we don't have a replacement for it. We'd have to use the larger vehicles, the ambulances, the fire trucks, to go out and do what this car does. It takes a lot of wear and tear off the bigger vehicles is what this would do. The current vehicle is a Chevy Tahoe. It's great. It's a good sized vehicle. One thing, is like any homeowner or anything, you're always looking for a pickup truck. You're always looking to put stuff into, whether, we're bringing stuff to the recycling center or if we're going to pick up supplies. Instead of taking the stretcher out of an ambulance, that's really our only option for bigger items. So we'd be looking at a pickup truck this time. And if the budget was right, to put a plow on it, that way we could take care of the parking lots and the front ramp as needed.
Okay.
So this is probably my highest priority for this year, is this engine pumper. It's 11 years old now. By the time we get a new one, this one might be 12 or 13 years old.
Now, is this the engine that was supposed to be replaced last year?
Correct. Yes. So, right now, I bet you we are 2 or 3 days out from 100,000 miles on this vehicle. Last year, between January 2021 through December 2021, we responded to 3,700 runs for the town of Rockland. It's our highest year ever. And we are not slowing down. And this vehicle goes to probably 90% of those calls. It's what we rely on. It's what the town relies on. And having a vehicle that's 13 years old, running as a frontline engine for a town of our size and busy, it's a travesty. We're asking for trouble. Last year, we probably put in FY22, FY21, I think we put $30,000 into this engine in repairs to keep it going. It's definitely a truck that should have been put in as a reserve truck last year to run second. So yeah, this is a high priority for us to get this truck replaced. And just so you know, this is the truck we paid for over 10 years. We had a 10-year lease on it. The truck before that, the newest truck before that's a 2005. That was paid with grant money from the federal government. It cost the town $26,000. And our third truck, the truck that's like the last one out, the backup to the backup, is a 1992 engine that we bought off the town of Hanover for $25,000. So this town really hasn't put money into the fire department as far as vehicles or engines or, in quite some time, as far as, what other towns have had in the past. We're not eligible for a fire truck through the federal grant process, although we are going to try anyway. But we think we have, less than 1% of a chance of even it getting looked at through the process.
What is it that makes us eligible for a grant in that regard?
Age of the trucks. A lot of times they they may have $400 million for grant money, and you figure a truck is just under $1 million. They may take 100 of that or $200 of that 400 and allot it for vehicles. And unfortunately, we might be fighting, or going up against a rural community in West Virginia who their truck is 40 years old, but only does 200-300 runs a year. And that's the one that would get priority. They take the age of your trucks and unfortunately it's an equation game for them.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
So did I hear that right? You averaged 10 runs a day?
Yeah. And right now I'd say we're averaging probably 15, 16 runs a day.
Wow.
Since November. I would say since November of 2021, it's been through the roof here. Yeah, it's been very, very busy. But almost, I would say once or twice a week, the deputy and myself are at calls by ourselves, while the rest of the department are at 2 or 3 other calls. Just, a lot of COVID calls, but even when COVID wasn't at its peak, we were still operating pretty heavily. So I don't know what changed, but it's been busy.
People's mental health.
Yeah, no, Lauren, I think you're 100% correct on that. Yeah,
that's probably right.
Scott, at one point you had talked about in another year, like a smaller vehicle to make runs with the ambulance instead of bringing the big engine out for all of them.
Yeah, Doug,
I don't know. Yeah,
we were funded for that last year. 2 years ago, we were funded as a lease purchase for that. We got looking into these vehicles, and the length of them. So it's an actual physical length. We wouldn't be able to fit it in the current fire station with the current apparatus we have.
okay.
So, you're looking at a 23-foot long vehicle was like the shortest that we'd be able to do. We would have to leave like an ambulance outside, and even then we'd be a bumper against the exterior wall, and then this truck against that truck's bumper. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So another thing that a new station potentially down the road can help solve too, because it can allow for more flexibility with the type of vehicles that you decide to deploy for what situations.
Correct. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, and also by delaying this a year, the price obviously has gone up, and instead of $600,000, it's $675,000 for a new fire engine. So
correct. And
all the more reason to buy you a fire engine now.
Yes, sir. Yes. And just so you know, our current ladder truck back in 1999 cost about $650,000. So the cost of fire apparatus is through the roof right now. Just like anything, I suppose, supply and demand.
And the replacement of the ambulance.
What's that, Lauren?
I said you're getting a fleet in 2023.
Well,
this was actually on the plan to come in 2023.
Correct. And the one thing that we have to remember and look at is the current build out for any of these vehicles is over a year right now. So FY20, we may not see these vehicles till FY24, unfortunately. So getting them in that process line is very, very important. So that's why, I was almost hesitant to say, I wasn't hesitant to say it, but I wanted to, keep this on the plan as now. If it were a typical year as, my first, say 8-9 years as a chief, I would say we could probably push this one off a year, but we really can't just because of the lead time to get these vehicles. Our current ambulance it's a 2019 and it's responding to 2,700 runs a year. We're probably up already over 100,000 miles on that one. The backup ambulance is a 2013, and the one in the third ambulance, the reserve ambulance is a 2008. And that's got close to 200,000 miles on it. So again, knock on wood, the ambulances are in good shape. You know, they kept maintained, but I just worry about the lead time for getting something. You know, if we push off to FY 2024, then, you know, we're not looking for that new ambulance till FY 2025, maybe even later.
Now, I know this is probably not a question for you, but probably a question for either Doug or Biz. But now, say you get approved for the funding for the ambulance in fiscal year 2023. However, it can't be delivered until 2024. How does the town pay for it?
I think that money would be appropriated in the current year, but he has, I think, 2 to 3 years to use that before it gets thrown back into
Oh,
the
is that
general
how it
fund.
works?
Yeah,
Okay.
if I
Yeah.
can jump in, Rich, yeah,
ahead.
capital funding doesn't expire like operating budget does at the end of the fiscal year. So
Okay.
that's common. That's not a problem.
I wasn't sure about that. I
Yep,
didn't know how that
capital's
worked.
different.
It's a
Okay.
good question.
All right. The other question I had is your radio repairs that you had put in for $120,000 that you had expected was probably going to be this year. Are we or the radio system upgrade? Are we
Yep.
going to push that out or?
Yeah, sir. If we could probably push that out of fiscal year. We'll revisit it next year.
Okay.
And really, it's just how much can I pile on the town in one fiscal year with requests? And you know, the current radio system, while it does need upgrades, it's more of like a software upgrade type of thing. So we're okay. We're very fortunate with the system we have.
Okay.
That being said, it will probably cut out tonight at 3 a.m. But
Let's
Yeah,
hope.
quick knock on some
Let's
wood,
hope
right?
yeah,
Okay. Can you think of anything else besides a new fire station that you would need in the next couple of years beyond that?
so we're probably gonna need a new fire alarm truck in the next probably 3 fiscal years. You know, that's the one that we use to maintain the fire alarm wires throughout town for the red boxes that you see on buildings.
Yep.
You know, we do have a revolving account fund that gets paid in, you know, people pay into that. That was probably something we can, you know, lease purchase in a few years. The current truck is mechanically sound, but, you know, it'll probably be due for replacement in a couple fiscal years.
All right. So why don't I just, put a placeholder and say, that's 3, 4, 5 in 2026.
2025, 2026, yeah.
All right. I'll throw 70,000 in because it's like a pickup.
It's gonna probably be closer to 100. But we could
Closer to
also,
it.
we might be able to get you know, get a used one also. So I honestly don't know what the going rate on those trucks are right now.
If we're
All
putting it
right,
out for 25, it's gonna change, yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
it's just a
Just a
round number,
placeholder.
just to put
Yeah.
something a placeholder.
Yep. And then probably in another 5 fiscal years, we'll be, you know, I'll probably have to come for another engine. And then eventually, probably 6 fiscal years, we'll probably be looking at a new ladder truck.
Okay, so we can talk about that next year because we do
Yeah.
ours on a 5-year rotation.
Yep.
So, can I have a motion to accept?
Can I ask one
Chief
question real
Duffy's-
quick before we
No,
motion?
absolutely. I
And
apologize.
then I'll make a motion. So just, I'm looking at the age of the ambulances too. So is that also kind of like a 5-6 years? Or is it sooner? Because actually the 2019 vehicle, then we're into 2020, 3 probably when that, or 2024 when it shows up. I guess that would be 5 years, right? So is it about every 5, 6 years?
Yeah, yes. Ideally, every 3 years, you want to, bring a new ambulance in as your frontline truck. And then, by the time the oldest ambulance is out the door, it's 9, 10 years old. I mean, they do take a beating. So
we're right now we're not quite hitting that mark. We're running these things a little longer.
yeah, we're like the 3-4 year mark, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. I'll make a, unless anyone has anything else, I'll make a motion to accept this presentation and add.
I had a quick question. Well, no, all right, so the fire alarm truck's gonna go out to 2025. Now, you said this engine, we're gonna need it about 5 years. I don't think it would hurt to put as a placeholder out in the 5th year on the capital plan, just so it's on there. If you could give a rough number that we can adjust later. That's just a suggestion, Rich.
It's 675,000 for an engine today. I would probably say in 5 years, an engine is going to be probably you're talking 800,000.
That's what I was thinking.
That's a guess. I don't have a crystal ball for that one.
It's a guess. Who knows?
Yep.
Yeah, we just want to put a placeholder out there. So when people look at the capital plan out for 5 years, they know, all right, in the 5th year, we're going to need an engine and it's going to be roughly this amount, but we can always update that number over the next 3-4 years, whatever.
Right. Yep.
Just for the sake of a 5-year plan, it's the 5th year, you're going to need it. So.
No, it's perfect. No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Fire Chief Duffy? Okay, can I have a motion to accept the chief's presentation of his articles?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And Jeff?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye. Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Lauren? I saw the mouth move.
Sorry, aye.
And I am an aye as well. Thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate
Nope.
your time.
No, thank you all for having me. I appreciate your time and your time on this committee. So thank you very much. You all have a good night.
All
Thanks,
right.
Scott. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, guys, we got a lot of stuff here. The finance committee is gonna fall off their chairs. Because we're getting the first view at this. The finance committee hasn't met with these guys yet on any of this stuff. So we're getting a preview. And we'll probably get more detail. We'll probably have to talk to Scott again and tighten this up a little bit. I think after they go to finance.
So let me see, where are we on the agenda here? Doug, did you want to bring up the town capital projects one?
Sure, thanks, Rich. This is something, yep, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. So yeah, this is, something we've been doing the past couple of years, and it's proved to be very helpful. It enables us to make unanticipated repairs at, it could be a building, it could be, an exterior of a building, also helps with cost overruns, things like that. So I don't have, I could come back at another time and give you like more specifics about exactly what we've used it on the past, but it's all good stuff, electrical repairs, plumbing repairs. I've used a bunch of the funding at the highway department to do some of the building envelope repairs for some of the structures over at highway, setting some of that aside right now for some improvements to the library building. So it's a very helpful thing to have. And the fact that it's, capital, as we just talked about, if there's a little bit left, I can roll it over into the next year. And so I think this amount, 75,000, is kind of hitting the sweet spot right now for what we can afford and what's useful. So I'm requesting the same amount again.
Yeah, when you come back to us on those, on a better number, I mean, kind of fill us in on if anything's rolled over from the prior years, that is there anything left, or whatever, just a general breakdown.
Yeah, and so I'm happy to give you more detail at another meeting, but I mean, generally, I don't spend it all quickly because I always want to hold some back for unanticipated things that I can't predict. And so kind of by definition, what will happen is, I don't have a crystal ball, so I tend to roll over a little bit each year, and then I start to spend it on the next, wave of projects. But I'm happy to share more detail on everything we've spent it on. But that's sort of why some amounts generally do get rolled over, is not because of lack of need. I could spend, 175,000 a year, no problem, but I try to be judicious with it so that I don't spend it all and then I have a leaky roof or some other emergency that I don't have funds available to handle.
Okay. And on the screen right now is the summary list of capital projects that will be coming to us this year. So we've met with the fire department, highway department, and we've gotten the sewer department's requests. I am going to see about if we can get the water department and or the police department for next week. And see if we can have a meeting next Thursday as well. That work for everybody?
Sounds all right.
And I'll schedule a Zoom as well for next Thursday. I'd like to welcome Bill
Bill, for joining us.
To our
Bill.
happy
Thanks,
to our
Bill.
happy group.
Are you there, Jeff?
Oh, I think you're on mute, Bill. Sorry.
Jeff, I didn't realize Jeff. Hey, Jeff.
Sorry, I'm just taking, I have to take.
No, you're doing tax returns. I know it. No.
Too early.
No, when you stepped down from the finance committee, I erroneously assumed you were stepping down from the capital planning. I didn't realize you were staying on, and I appreciate that you are staying on.
Yeah, I never stepped down.
That's what
from the
confused
finance
Rich
committee.
about who's Bill replacing. He thought it might be me.
So, well, anyway, I welcome Bill to join us.
Thank you.
As a representative from the finance committee, and we will. I have you on the distribution list for my email now, and I also have you on the distribution list that I use for texting. So that when I send out text, because what happens is I'll send out an email, and nobody will read the email. So I'll have to send out a text to tell people to read their emails.
So true.
It is true, Rich, and I apologize. I just get so many. It's hard to keep up with some of them. So I appreciate you shooting out the text. Thanks.
So,
I appreciate it as well. A great deal.
I do send out the emails with the agenda, and the agenda will have the Zoom information and or the conference room information. If we ever decide to go back to real life again.
Conditions permitting, I would like it.
Yes, I would like it as well. I don't have a real problem with meeting personally. I look forward to a world where we don't have to mask and we can see each other's faces.
Wouldn't that be nice?
It would be. I'm going deaf, and it drives me crazy because I can't read people's lips anymore, or the facial expressions. You don't know how much you depend on it.
So my goal is to reach out to the police chief and or the water department for next week. See if we can get the school department in the week or two after. And then if we can try and wrap up I want to try and wrap up these meetings by as we always try to do, by the middle of February, so that we can then do our scoring and ranking. On the spreadsheet that you got, Bill, you'll see that there's a tab there for ranking, as well as the tab for the actual plan. Now, during the meeting, as we've been going through, I've been slotting things into the different years and editing the plan kind of live, so to speak. And then what'll happen is I'll share that with everybody once I get it cleaned up and put together.
It still will be somewhat of a preliminary, even though you clean it up, because
Yeah, it'll be preliminary, and it'll be a little bit of a mess still. But I'm still working on hiding my columns, and I'm leaving the fiscal year 2022 column there so that I can see what they had. And then
like you did last year, that's good.
Yeah. So, let's see. Back to the agenda. So those are the capital requests. Agenda, meet with those departments. Does anybody have any new business to discuss for the committee?
The only thing I wanted to bring up possibly is, and we discussed this at the, we had a finance meeting yesterday, me and Bill. And Doug and John Pumphrey are working on, Doug's got a dashboard, financial dashboard for himself and for other people to realize where we are with different things, revenues and expenses and taxes and whatnot. But John's gonna work with Doug to expand on it, to give the finance committee a little more information for them to work with. But he's gonna ask the capital planning committee for the top 5 most important projects. I'm not sure if that means the highest ranked or the lowest ranked, or just what we think is the important ones. But he's going to be looking to put that on his new dashboard for the finance committee, so they have a little background on the capital planning on the top 5 projects. I just want to put that out there for you.
I imagine it would go by the rankings that the capital planning committee has to
For the
use.
most part, yeah.
And because, as you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the most important project to that specific department or whatever. It all goes by how the numbers fall.
Right.
So,
It's gonna have to do with the ranking and plus the year it's in. I think
correct.
on the dashboard, they're gonna be looking for more of the top stuff in the current year, maybe. That's something we got to discuss with John when he ask us for that information.
If we rank everything the way we always do overall, and then we just go through, the next fiscal year, and we could sort those just for that year, that might.
That's what I was thinking, Lauren. Yeah, something like that.
Without having to re-rank or retouch anything. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Is Doug still here?
Both
Doug
Dougs are there.
I'm
Doug
here.
Waller was just trying to say something.
Oh, all right. I just wasn't sure how much you were up on this, Doug. I know you you've presented your dashboard to us, and I know John created one. I don't know if he's gone over it with you yet.
Yeah, he did email it to me, and it was, very different from what I had put together. So I'm going to need a little time to really look at it carefully and think
Yeah,
about it and try to
he's
understand.
looking for a lot more information than your
Right.
hard dashboard.
Right, so I'll have to look at it.
All right, I just wanted to give our committee a heads up on it, and I don't know, and I'm not even sure if you're going to be able to give John as much detail as he wants on his dashboard, because it's way more expanded than yours.
And frankly, I mean, we really don't rank everything until the end anyway. So
Yep.
It's hard to give him the top 5 today because we don't know what the top 5 is yet. We haven't done it.
Right.
You're right.
So the thing I was going to mention, just as we were talking about rankings, I feel like every year when we get to the ranking time, we kind of fight with our tool a little bit, whether we like it and we understand it. And so I was going to suggest that we have a meeting that before we actually start doing rankings, that we go through that tool again. And then, I don't know, maybe we can make some adjustments to make sure that it's accomplishing what we think it should accomplish, because sometimes it's not clear. It doesn't produce the result that we think it probably should produce. It's not a perfect tool. So, and I'm not saying we're going to make a perfect tool.
Nope.
We can make something a little better. So just a
Doug
suggestion.
and
I
Rich,
bring this
if I
up every
could-
year, but we never get around to doing it. So
Doug and Rich, if I could ask, are there other towns that use different scoring sheets?
I don't know. I do know
Yes.
the chairperson of.
I would say
King-
yes.
I know the chairperson of Kingston's capital planning committee. So let me talk to him and find out what he uses for his scoring sheets and how they do their rankings.
I'm sorry, Rich, who are you going to talk to?
I have a friend of mine is the chairperson of the Kingston capital planning committee.
Oh, good. I mean, I did on the finance committee, some of us went to a seminar over at Bridgewater State, and I sat in on a seminar, a half-a-day seminar on capital planning. And another town, I can't remember the name of the town, was very elaborate on what they did. I mean, we're not even close to their level, but it was probably a bigger town and they had more volunteers working on it. So, but yeah, and to answer your question, Chris, that it's very arbitrary. A lot of towns do it differently. I mean, we don't do half the stuff that is suggested in the state manual for developing a capital planning committee, which is our prerogative, as long as we have a capital planning and we're making an effort.
Doug L., you've seen other towns, obviously. What have you thought about? Any ideas that could help us modify it that would be to our advantage?
Yeah, there's definitely like a spectrum of how towns do it. And I'd say Rockland is kind of in the middle. Some towns might be a little bit more sophisticated, but there's other towns that don't
even have it. Don't even do it. Yeah, they don't have a capital planning.
Or to the extent they do have it, it's based more on just kind of anecdote and just individual relative opinions of members, and they don't even use, proper scoring sheet. So personally, I actually like the way you guys do it. I think it works. But if, to Doug Wallow's point, if you guys struggle with it a little bit every year, have concerns, you should absolutely look at some other towns. And if you need some help with that, I'm happy to talk to other town managers and see which towns like the way their capital committees work, and I could find out what they're doing. But again, my sense is there's like a spectrum, and I feel like we're kind of in the middle, we're to the extent that's kind of a useful frame of reference or not.
yeah, and just to be clear, I don't necessarily want to do anything that's super sophisticated or blow up our process. More just take a quick look at our tool and say, is it the right questions on that tool with the right numbers assigned to it? Because there's just times where we're like, is this an annual savings or, and it doesn't always work. There's weird situations that don't play well with the tool itself. So,
right. And one other point I would make is one of the main, in addition to it being useful for us and for the selectmen and the finance committee and for town meeting to know that we have this plan and we can look at it, the only real external entity that ever asks to look at it regularly are the bonding rating agencies. When Moody's or Standard & Poor's, goes to rate us when we go out to bond, say for the school project or whatever, they always ask to see our capital plan. But all they ever really ask for is the final document, the actual multi-year plan that, that shows everything. And I do give them, that backup, but in all of my years, no one's ever asked, what's your review tool like? What's your, nobody asks about that level of detail. They really kind of give that to that discretion to the town. And they really just want to see the end result is the town planning for future capital expenses. That's really what the rating agencies look for. And to be honest, they're always very impressed with the capital plan I give them with Rich's document. It's a good document, and that's always very well received by the rating agencies, which you guys should be proud of because they're looking at municipalities all across the country, so they guys know what they're doing. So,
and it's establishing the capital plan fund that we set up too is helpful and looks good for the town too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't know if the rest of the committee members know that we did set up a new capital planning reserve fund.
Capital stabilization fund.
Stabilization fund, that's what I meant, yeah.
That's true.
That we've put a little money into already, and we're trying to put more money. We'll continue to try to put more money in it, and so those can go towards some of these projects we're putting on the plan for the different departments.
If folks are going to be asking and more interested in the rankings and wanting to know what our top 5 of anything is, I just want to feel like the resulting rankings we're confident in. That's all. That the numbers make sense. It generally looks good, but then sometimes there's things where I'm like, well, my gut tells me that item should be probably above that item, even though the ranking said something different. So I just don't always feel super confident.
I agree with you on that, Doug, and that's why I said it's going to be up to us as committee members to decide really what we think the top 5 are, with kind of taking the rating into account, but not count on the rating 100%. You know what I mean?
And it's also possible, as Doug said, that if we do a rating tool review, that we may just need to do a little bit of tweaking with the ranges or tweaking with the numbers of the different categories or the questions.
One easy category that I could see that we would add would just be having a number of like giving credit for anything that's considered as a safety consideration. I mean, I think some of the things that we talk about, with the different departments is there's some safety concerns and there's timelines associated with how long those things are going to be safe for the town. And there isn't anything that's giving, credit to that in the ranking system that we have.
You have a good point, Lauren, and I think you're right.
Safety concerns, maybe we need to take a peek and make sure that the safety concerns are being properly ranked.
Yeah. I think we can have a discussion and possibly adjust the ranking a little bit, add a question, because the one we're using is directly out of the state manual, and we're not required to go by that by gospel. It's just a recommendation. So I think we do.
Well, I don't so much have a problem with the sheet we have. It seems as though certain projects that come up, you're like, it just doesn't necessarily always fit into that square box. A lot of them do, but a lot of them we kind of, use our own judgment as far as, okay, yeah, we're going to say that this applies to that because it's the only logical thing to do based on the parameters we have to work with. So that's why I'm just saying if there was other sheets to see, maybe we could pick and choose a couple of things from theirs that we just don't know about, that might be helpful, to add into ours, not change ours, but just add on, kind of like the way Lauren was saying, and let's just find out what those are.
I mean, yeah, keep this grading. I know a lot of our grading ends up being the same numbers because we're using the same thing. But if we had a simple category like, is this a safety issue? Yes or no. And if you mark yes, it automatically gets whatever the rank is, an extra 3. And then you could even break that down further and say, is this a safety issue for the current fiscal year? If that answer is yes, again, it gets another 5 points. If it's, if it's 2 years out, it gets 4 points. If it's 3 years out, it get, and so on and so forth. If it's 5 years out, but it's a safety issue, then it still gets a little bit of extra credit, but not as much because we've got a couple years to address it. So
Let's table that for now, Doug, and if you could get us a sheet that looks like that, and Rich, I'd love to hear what feedback you get from your guy down in Kingston. And, Joe, I don't know if you have anything from that conference that you attended that you could pull out from and we could kind of just see if there's a couple things or 1 or 2 things that we might want to add on to it, just like Lauren's saying, so that way we can try to have more of a well-rounded.
To be honest with you, I sat in that meeting and some of the stuff went right over my head, to be honest with you. Because
there's the sheets that the
it
scoring.
just happened to be the town that did it was so far advanced in their capital planning that they were on the top tier of capital plannings. But
so there's only 1 or 2 other sheets that you saw at that meeting that we could use.
no, I didn't see any sheets. I didn't even
Oh.
see a rating sheet or anything there. They didn't have anything. Yeah.
Huh. All right. Well, let's table it for now then, because it's already
9 after 9, right?
20 after 9.
Yeah, 9:30 almost. Yeah.
All right, so that was a good discussion, and I will put that on the agenda for probably the meeting before we start to get ready to score. And can I get if there's no other discussion, could I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All those in favor, Jeff?
Keep
You're
Ellis.
first, pal.
Joe?
Yes.
Lauren?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
I keep wanting to. Chris? It says
Aye.
Kaylee. I want.
You're making them think.
And myself. So that concludes the Capital Planning Committee meeting for the 13th of January, 2022. Thank you and have a good night.
It's good seeing all your faces.